All right, American Cultures 3. Today's going to be your last day of notes for O.J. Simpson. It's going to be the shortest day of notes. Now, remember, after I post these notes, I am going to post a link for, it'll be in your files, I believe, for your review guide for the O.J. test, which is going to be Tuesday. All right, and another reminder, on Monday, we are going to have a Zoom meeting for anyone that wants to go over the material, has questions about it or anything like that. As far as stuff you're not sure on, I'll go over stuff with you to make sure you know what you need to study for, what you need to have written down, all those good things, all right? So, now, all the evidence is presented. Now, I keep referring to a racist cop, right, named Mark Fuhrman. Well, how was he racist, and what did he do? Well, here's what happened. There were rumors for years that he was racist, okay? And the defense team, OJ's defense team, ends up getting a hold of audio tapes. In 1985, Mark Fuhrman did an interview with a lady that was going to make a movie about cops. It was audio tapes. It wasn't a filmed interview. And in the interview, he talks about the African-American community a lot, how easy it is to frame them for crimes, how you can beat them if you're a police officer and get away with it, all sorts of things. He says the N-word numerous times in the interview, and just goes on and on about how easy it is to arrest them, to frame them, to beat them and get away with it, all sorts of things, okay? So anyway, OJ's defense team finds out about this, and his one lawyer, F. Lee Bailey, who is an older white man, asks him on the stand, have you ever used the N-word? And he says it. It ends up being a very powerful moment in the case. And he asks him over and over again in different ways if he ever said that word. And every time, Mark Fuhrman's like, no, I've never said that. No, I've never said that. I'm not a racist. I don't believe it. All those things. So a couple days later, they release the tapes where you hear him on the audio saying the word over and over again, talking about how it's easy to frame African Americans, how police officers can beat them and get away, all these sorts of things. So it was a huge blow to the prosecution, because once that came out, now you have reasonable doubt that, hey, maybe this guy is racist and maybe he could have framed him. Who knows? So anyway, the day of the verdict comes out, and give you an idea, I was in 6th grade at the time. All right, I was like 12. And it was during class that the verdict was read, and school stopped. There was a loudspeaker, the principal, Mrs. Sedlak, over the announcement said, you know, this is a historic moment, so we're all going to listen. And class stopped. So just to give you an idea of how big of a moment this was, even in school, we stopped and listened to the verdict. And, excuse me, the verdict came down not guilty, that he was innocent of these crimes. And in the courtroom, Nicole's family, Ron's family, they break down in tears, and one of them even shouts murderer at him. And afterwards, they interview some of the jurors, and one of the jurors said, and it's in the documentary, if you have ESPN Plus, OJ Made in America, that it was revenge for Rodney King, for what happened a couple years earlier when Rodney King was beaten by the police officers and all those sorts of things, that it was revenge for what happened on those days. Now, is that fair for this case? No, not at all. And did every juror feel that way? Probably not, but at least that one did. All right. Now, OJ's life after being acquitted was rough. They ended up suing him. The families of Nicole and Ron sued him civilly. Now, if you know the difference, civilly, if you're found guilty in a civil court, you don't go to jail. You have to pay money. And in that court case, he was found guilty and was ordered to pay a whole bunch of money to the families, which he never did. But anyway, about 13 years later, there was a guy selling memorabilia in Vegas, like selling sports memorabilia. Well, he had a bunch of OJ stuff that he was going to sell. Footballs, autographs, you name it. And OJ did not give him permission to sell these things. OJ finds out where he is in a hotel room, and OJ gets some of his buddies together, and they get some guns, and they go into the room, and they demand OJ's stuff back, and they take it. But the problem is they take it at gunpoint, and they won't let the guy leave the hotel room until after he gives the stuff back to OJ. So OJ is charged with holding a hostage, kidnapping, and all these sorts of things. OJ ends up getting sentenced for that crime to, I believe, 30 years in prison. Okay. Now, that crime is a crime, but if you look at the whole scheme of it, he was getting his stuff back. Now, yes, he was using a gun, and yes, he wouldn't let the guy leave. That is illegal. I'm not saying it's not. But he was doing it so he would get his stuff back. If you or me or somebody else committed that exact same crime, our punishment probably wouldn't be nearly as harsh. Might be a year or two. But OJ was sentenced to 30 years, and a lot of people believe that 30 years was the judge that sentenced him to the 30 years was getting kind of revenge for what happened in the 90s with Nicole and Ron. No one can ever prove that, but it's pretty obvious. But anyway, he ends up getting released after serving 7 years. He makes bail, and apparently he was a upstanding prisoner in the prison, and he is now released. He's now on Twitter. He makes Twitter videos. So if you want to see those and roll your eyes, you can. But he is out now. He's in his 70s. But that is the very, very, very shortened version of the O.J. Simpson case. And like I said, if you have ESPN Plus, and if you don't, you really should get it. It's amazing. Check it out. It's called O.J. Made in America. It's a 5-part documentary. It's very long, but it is fascinating. It breaks down his young life, his relationship with Nicole, the murder, the trial, the aftermath, everything. And it's phenomenal. You should really check it out. So that's it with the OJ notes. I'm going to post this video, and then I'm going to post a study guide for you guys. Tomorrow, I believe it's at noon. Yeah, tomorrow, or not tomorrow. Sorry, tomorrow's Saturday. Monday at noon, we will have a Zoom meeting, all right, to go over this. And any questions you have, any help you need, anything like that, I will be on Monday at noon. I'm going to send a link for you guys for that as well, all right? Have a great weekend. See you guys Monday.